Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Offshore Spotlight on the new Power Syllabus. Um, what we're going to talk about today is a little bit about the updates to the syllabus structure, specifically for the power vessels. We're going to walk through the three offshore modules that are included within that, explain how you can support your cadets before they go on the voyage, and then discuss how this can support you as a UTO. The first question is, why are we updating the structure? I think the key element in this, first of all, is to say that the experience that we know that the cadets get a huge amount from at the moment, and the experience that a lot of our crew and the relief crew on board really enjoys, not changing massively at all. It's still going to have the same outcomes. But what we have been looking at is obviously the Sea Cadet Experience poster, and the Sea Cadet Experience that we offers two offshore voyages as part of your Sea Cadet Experience, whether that's on the blue or the green side, with a third being a really nice to have. And we know that some people manage to get on to do three, some people even manage to get on to do four, but we can only, with the number of berths that we have, offer two voyages as part of that to everyone. So the Sea Cadet Experience will offer that as core offer, with third as a bonus, and we want to make sure that this is equitable for as many people as possible, and also make sure that those higher level qualifications are more achievable. As you might know, at the moment we have Offshore Hand 1, Offshore Hand 2, Offshore Seaman, and Watch Leader, which is 4 steps, which actually for a majority of people at Sea Cadets is not going to be able to complete all 4 of those levels. So we want to make sure that you will be able to get to that highest level as quickly as possible. And also we want to make sure that we are mimicking the progression structure that we already have and the cadets already know for specializations and proficiencies in that basic, intermediate, advanced structure. So what has changed? First thing is we are changing to basic, intermediate, and advanced voyages. These are supposed to be representing different levels and are going to have different outcomes. So the basic is all about getting you interested and excited in what those different vessels can do and the offshore experience. Then the intermediate is supposed to be looking at what skills you can gain and what knowledge and what interest might you have that will lead towards potentially choices when it comes to A levels, choices when it comes to what you are doing outside of school. That might then work towards qualifications and pathways for job roles and things that might be related to offshore, but also has just really interesting activities that you might do on board. Then the advanced voyages are focused on being able to provide that really clear pathway for whatever job role, apprenticeship, university, whatever it might be that you're moving towards. These will give key skills that will help to benefit towards that, but also are really focused on those leadership skills. So regardless of whether you want to go and do something that's related to that particular voyage, whether you want to go and do engineering or mathematics or want to go and do some advanced navigation, it's not that shouldn't necessarily matter, because it's really focused on you being a leader, leading a team, building all of those transferable skills. The other thing that has changed is we are now mapping the offshore experience to CTP and CTS modules. So I'll show you a bit more detail about this in a minute, but it is mapped directly to, in each one of these, in basic, intermediate, and advanced, mapped to 8 modules within the CTP or CTS that can be signed off once you've completed your voyage. So they will come back and show you what they've completed, and it will allow you to sign off 8 of those CTP modules each time they go offshore. What we've also had feedback before is that it can sometimes feel like, both from your perspectives as UTOs, but also from the cadets and parents and carers, that we're sending them off to go and do their voyage. We don't necessarily know what they're going to do, what the outcomes of it are going to be, until they come back with their booklet and maybe show you what you do. But we also get from some UTOs that even then they come back and they're like, oh no, I don't have my booklet. I don't remember what I did. So this now provides that both you, the cadet, and parents and carers can have access to all of that information before they go on board, and can also help prepare them for that before they actually go on board. Fourth thing that we've got in is checkpoints throughout the voyage. So we get some feedback from people coming offshore saying when they finish it and they don't necessarily get the badge or don't necessarily get the qualification, coming back and saying, well, I don't know why I didn't get that badge. This provides a checkpoint on at the end of day 3 and the end of day 5 that will allow them to reflect on with the rest of the crew whether they are meeting the targets in all of the different areas that will allow them to get their badges, and just provides a much clearer, much more transparent sense of, okay, I wasn't really meeting this on the end of day 2. I wasn't really meeting this at the end of day 5. And I didn't manage to make it. You can see that progression rather than just coming back and saying, yeah, didn't get that one ticked off. But why didn't you get that ticked off? Did anyone speak to you about it? That second checkpoint especially gives a chance for the crew to go, okay, you're not meeting this now. This is what you need to do to meet that and hopefully get you to that point at the end of the week, rather than just going, nope, at the end of day 7, you didn't make it, sorry. Providing a bit more guidance. The next thing is, and we've got a lot of requests for this from unit teams, but also from the crews, is we now have some pre-learning, which allows cadets to do some of the work, both in terms of CTP modules, but also revising some of the elements that really help them when they get on board. So we haven't put them as prerequisites to go on board, but we want to try and get all UTOs to help support to get this pre-learning, which is again about a series of 7 or 8 modules in the CTP that they should have completed before they go on board at different levels before each of their voyages. The other thing that we've added in is based on the skills that they get. As I said, for a lot of these, it's not just about the skills that they gain to do with seamanship. It's not just the skills they gain to do with navigation. There's actually loads of life skills and transferable skills that are really useful to talk about when they go into an interview, when they go in to do their personal statement. But quite often we get people putting into interviews and personal statements, I went offshore, I was a watch leader. That terminology doesn't necessarily mean anything to someone who doesn't know what sea cadets are. So we have taken some of the key skills in terms of teamwork, communication, self-discipline, things like that, and written out some examples of what you could put into a personal statement or a cover letter, or use an interview that will show off those skills in a way that is understandable to someone who's doing the interview who doesn't necessarily know what Sea Cadets is. And hopefully you'll have seen that there's a similar thing to this in all of our life skills CTP modules as well. So about a third of all CTP and CTS modules at the bottom will have a similar thing that people can use to say, oh, I completed this, these are the skills that I gained. One of the big questions that I'm sure you all have is, what if the cadets have already completed a voyage? So basic is now going to be representative of offshore hand 1 and offshore hand 2. Intermediate is offshore seaman, and advanced is offshore watch leader. So if they have already done offshore hand 2 or offshore seaman, they will already be working towards the next level. They'll just be working towards their next qualification as they would have done anyway. If they have only been on once and they've done their OH1, the skills that they will have gained from doing OH1 will mean that they can almost certainly get to a point, if they work hard, if they have done some preparation beforehand, to complete not only offshore hand 2 and complete the whole of the basic, but also get at least a decent chunk of the way through the intermediate, if not having completed that intermediate bit. But what they will be able to get, if they've done offshore hand 1, they will almost certainly be able to get their RYA qualification, which you don't normally get until the end of offshore hand 2. So there will definitely be a qualification they'll be able to get, even if they don't quite make it all the way through to the end of intermediate. But speaking to the crews, don't have any worries that they should, if they do the pre-learning for both basic and intermediate before they come on board, no reason why they shouldn't be able to complete both. Where can I find the information? So there is a syllabus guide, which I will just show you on here. So if you go to the offshore TNA page, you will be able to find it in here, supporting your cadets before their voyage. You can click into this bit here or click this picture. And then for cadets, if they go onto the the cadet portal and go into power vessels, scroll down, and then there is the offshore syllabus guide here. We're looking at potentially changing around the format of this to make it a bit easier to find, but this is where it is for the moment. But if you can point them to that, that'd be great. So open that up and you can click directly into the syllabus guide. The syllabus guide looks like this, and it's split into Power Vessel Basic, Power Vessel Intermediate, and Power Vessel Advanced. These have all of the information that is going to be most useful for you and for parents and for cadets before they go on board. So first thing is we're looking for people to be at least 12 years old, have at least 3 months of the cadet or Royal Marine cadet. We get a lot of people coming, especially in the power vessels, because that's the first ones that you can apply for, who might have only been a cadet for 2 weeks and have been juniors, and the second they get promoted up to cadets, then they're suddenly on board. What we generally find is that they struggle a little bit more through that week because they haven't done any of the seamanship skills, they haven't done all their boating skills that they might need. If they've done at least 3 months before they go on board, that just gives them a nicer basis on which to draw on. And then we've got a link here to what all of the key introductory sessions should be. So before they come on board, if you're able to make sure that they have completed these, that's great. A lot of these are sort of the new entry ones, and then some of these are the basic. So, for example, basic collision regulations, doing the rules of the road, knowing what the parts of the ship are and what some of those basic sea terms are, being able to tie a bowline, a clove hitch, and a sheet bend, knowing what charts are, and then having done their water safety test being really important, and knowing about cold water shock and things like that. This is the same for intermediate, but there is a different set of prerequisites. And then if you go into each of these, we've split up the modules that they complete on board into life skills, adventure, and Sea Cadet experience. First one of these being the Sea Cadet experience. These are the skills that they will be able to sign off if they go offshore. So what you will see is, for example, maritime careers will be completed in discussion with members of the crew or with invited guests, and it's about being able to describe the different roles on board the ship and how these can vary depending on the types of vessel. And they will be able to come back and you'll see that they've got a tick in the box, sorry, some initials in the box to say that they have completed this as part of their offshore experience, but there will also be a ship stamp over a section which says SC09, that says CK13, which means that you are then able to sign that off. Make sure that they have definitely got the ship stamp. They haven't just ticked it or written a name next to it, because that means that they haven't actually got it signed off, and they might just be trying to get it signed off from you. But yes, if it's got the ship stamp on it, you would then be able to sign off CK13 maritime careers. Exactly the same for the weather observations. If they can recognise, measure wind conditions while completing offshore activity and complete the weather observation, they will get SC10 signed off, but they will also get a ship stamp in 2007, and you can then sign that off as an UTO. Hopefully this supports you both in terms of being able to get some of the CCP stuff signed off by them going offshore, but also when you are doing these sessions with other cadets, if they're around, they can go, oh yeah, I did this when I was offshore. This is how you put it into practice. It provides that contextual knowledge, so you're not just having to provide that, but the cadets can do that themselves. The adventure modules are the ones which are different for each of the different vessels. So in the power vessels, these are really focused on navigation and engineering skills. So if they are interested in the Navy, some of those seamanship roles, navigation roles, if they're interested in engineering, this is where a lot of those key skills come in. So if you're doing your intermediate, focusing on mooring, engine maintenance, cooling the engine, watering ship and fuel supply, pre-sea checks, taking the helm, doing lookouts, all of that, which is really key skills that will actually help you to think about whether engineering, navigation, one of those sorts of roles as things that you might be interested in the future. And then the third one, the ones that I discussed earlier on, are the life skills. And these are, for example, communication, leadership and teamwork, independence. And each of these have, when you will complete them, so independence will be completed as part of daily life. You'll have a crew and team around you, but some elements you might need to manage independently, from ensuring where you need to be on time, keeping hygiene standards, being open and honest about welfare. And then in the what transferable skills have I gained, they can then take this directly and use this as their experience. So for example, in this case, I learned how to manage my time and personal responsibilities while living and working aboard a Sea Cadets offshore vessel, making sure I was always prepared, present, and maintaining high standards. I also developed the competence to speak up about my well-being when needed, which has helped me build resilience and self-awareness. They're exactly the same for all of these in here. Goal setting, emergencies on board. They all have skills that they've been able to demonstrate on that. What they can also do if they look at the pre-learning, there are also the links to the session plan if they want to go back and revise, but also some videos that they can use that will then allow them to practice at home. So maybe they did their introduction to clouds 4 months before, they might have forgotten about it. Rather than you having to do a whole new session with them, point them to this, they can then go on and have a look at all of the cloud types in a video here that then provides them a bit more explanation. So how can you support your cadets? The first bit is before they come on board, having a look at those pre-learning modules, seeing how confident they feel, talking them through and walking them through those skills. The key thing to know is that obviously this is the first season that we're doing it, so we're not expecting every cadet to come on board with a real confidence in these skills. But the more you can do to help prepare them beforehand, the better. They will also come on board, and as one of the first things they do when they get onto the vessel is they will do a confidence check on those skills, so that if they actually didn't feel that confident and you didn't have a huge amount of time to prepare them because it's beginning of the season, they will be able to say, actually, you know what, I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I might need a bit more support. And that's absolutely fine. The crews are absolutely prepared for that over these first bits of the season. The other bit that would be really great, especially while we're changing the format of that portal page to make it front and center, is to point both the cadets and the parents and carers to that offshore syllabus guide. Once they're booked on, when you get them booked on, go, okay, and have you had a look at the syllabus guide? You can find it here on the portal. Would be great. Then when they come back, we know that sometimes cadets just shove their offshore handbook in a bag and you never see it again, but just prompting them when they come back to bring their offshore handbook with them so that they can show you what they've signed off, what they've got signed off, what the CTP modules are, etc. And then when they do show you that, signing them off on Westminster so they get those completed as part of their CTP. How can it support you in the unit? Hopefully, you see from the things we've been talking about that it will provide a bit more support. I think the key thing is that it will hopefully mean that you have a bit more knowledge of what goes on offshore, a bit more of an understanding about what they should be doing, what skills they're getting, and they come back and you can actually talk to them about it with a bit more knowledge. Also obviously allows you to sign off some of those CTP modules that you might want to get signed off or are sometimes trickier to deliver. You can also use those cadets to support the delivery of those skills when you're teaching them to other cadets. It also allows cadets and parents and carers to see the value of the voyages because they can actually see what the outcomes are. It's not just, oh yeah, you can go on board a ship that we don't know a huge amount about to do some skills that we don't know a huge amount. Have a look through this. This has got all the things they're going to do. What we've also done is to make sure that, for example, basic and intermediate and advanced are not directly tied to specific RYA qualifications. If you're completing the basic, you will almost certainly get the skills to be able to complete your first RYA qualification, the RYA start motor. But you don't have to complete those RYA qualifications. And sometimes, for example, this is going to be more of a thing when we get to the higher level RYA qualifications. There are some elements of those higher level or RYA qualifications that we can't or don't always have time to deliver, depending on weather, depending on what the voyage is. So it's about cadets putting a request in and saying, I would like to complete my RYA watch leader alongside my sea cadets, or I would like to work towards my competent crew, whatever it might be. And so that we can actually say, yes, you can get your advanced, and these are the things that you need to come already prepared with if you want to get this RYA qualification, because actually there are some things like driving a powerboat. They probably won't get to do that in every single voyage. They won't get to do that as part of their general voyage. So there are elements of that which allow us to award the badges because they've actually done all of the skills that they need to from a sea cadet's perspective. And the RYA qualifications, we can make sure that if they really want to work towards that, we can either put on specific voyages for those, but also they can request to do them as part of their voyage, but not everyone has to do them if they haven't come along with those prereqs. Hopefully that makes sense. And I will stop the recording there for any questions. Thank you.